So these cable cars have to be the most analog thing about San Francisco, and they are a throwback to almost 150 years ago. And there was this really short period of time where cable cars made sense, and there was one guy, and without that one guy, they may not have happened at all. And these aren't just tourist attractions, they literally helped build this city. So join me for a few tips on riding the rails. We're gonna go visit the Cable Car Museum with a special treat thrown in and discover some of the hidden history behind the last cable car system like this one in the entire world. Our story starts in 1879, and it was a cold and wet and foggy day, kind of like it is today. And there were some horses and a wagon climbing one of the steep hills in San Francisco. Unfortunately, it was so steep that those horses and that wagon, they slid backwards down the hill. It killed 5 horses and it was a mess. Well, one man at the bottom of that hill saw the accident, and that was Andrew Hallidie. And Hallidie was an immigrant from Scotland, and his family, they made wire rope, and they've made a lot of money in the mining industry in California. And something must have clicked for Hallidie at that moment, because in his mind, he thought, I can do better. I can create something that will be safer and maybe better for the city of San Francisco. So it's 4 years later, and the sun is coming up, and Hallidie and his team, they are about to test the first cable car line in San Francisco. The story goes that Hallidie was ready to get this thing tested, and the engineer, or the gripman, who was going to ride the test down the hill, he stepped back and he said, no thank you. So it was Hallidie who actually manned the controls on that first test ride, and it was a smashing success. So how do these things even work? It's kind of wacky when you think about it. What they did is they buried cables underground, and these cables, the longest I believe is 3 miles, they run constantly at 9.5 miles per hour. And when a cable car wants to go up a hill, there's a gripman inside with a device that grips the cable. And when they grip that cable, it tugs these cars up the hill. Now when they go downhill, it's a different story, right? They have to let go of the cable, and they use multiple braking systems to kind of slow the cars down. Now, I was on a cable car yesterday, and we were heading down a very steep hill, and the rear started smoking because that brake was making contact, and the friction got so hot that it was throwing off smoke, and I was like, whoa, okay, this really is analog. So you can see there's a grip station there in the front, and if we walk back, there's another grip station there. And that's unusual in the cable cars. On the California line, there is no turnaround, so they can't turn the cars around, so they need controls on both sides of the car. I call them gripmen because it wasn't until 1998 when the first female took the position. The position of gripman is physically demanding because if you think about gripping that cable, pulling back on the levers constantly all day, I'm imagining you get pretty tired doing that particular job. Our world famous cable car safety tips. Do not board a moving car. Do not step into oncoming traffic. Hang around curves or you may end up in the street. Do not lean out of the car. You might get picked off by another cable car coming the other way. Never stand behind the gripman, and do not touch the cords or ring bells on the cable cars. Those are actually used for warning people outside of the cable car, and those bells are used for communication between the gripman at the front of the car and the conductor at the back of the car. Let's talk for just a second about this time period when these things even made sense. It was roughly between when Hallidie created the first one in 1879 and the San Francisco earthquake, 1906. If you think about that time period, these were a perfect transportation for these hills in San Francisco, and they popped up in other places around the world. But really quickly after that, trolley cars, electric trolley cars, and then buses and automobiles came on the scene. And once they kind of arrived, the trolleys and the cars, it no longer made a lot of sense to maintain these cable car systems that were so fully analog and slow. They took a lot of time and a lot of effort to maintain. So why did San Francisco cable cars survive? The cable cars up to 1944, they were run by private companies, and apparently there was enough demand, they made money, and they kept the cable cars going. They were turned over to the city in 1944, and the city wanted to get rid of them. They wanted to get rid of them and put buses in. But in 1947, there was a community kind of uprising, and they're like, no, we want to keep these things in place. So they did. Now, 1979, the federal government came in and they looked around at the system and they're like, whoa, these things are old and dangerous and they're going to fall apart. So you need to fix them. They were shut down from 82 to 84 when basically the whole system was rebuilt underground. And when you ride a cable car today, you are literally riding a piece of the past. For almost 150 years, these things have been crawling up and down the hills of San Francisco, taking people where they want to go. Okay, couldn't get any more San Francisco than this. You got your Waymo, your driverless taxi, and right behind it, you have the cable cars. And if you're coming to San Francisco and you're riding the cable cars, then you really should go to the Cable Car Museum because it is a really cool place. And it's not a dusty old museum. It's actually where the heart of the cable car system is. You can see the large engines that drive the cables, and you can see the wheels and the sheaves that actually make those cables work. And there are cable cars from the past. It's really well worth your time to check this place out. Now, I got super lucky because in that building up above is the cable car barn. And I was thinking, like, where do cable cars go at night to sleep? Well, it turns out this barn is where they go. And I got talking to one of the mechanics who worked there, and he invited me in. And I got to go inside the barn and to see some of the older cable cars that they were restoring. I got to see the Tony Bennett cable car. It was really a fascinating experience, and talking to this mechanic gave me a real appreciation for how old these things really are. This particular guy worked on jet engines, on airplanes, and now he works on cable cars. And he loved it all, but he did say that working on the cable cars, it's such a simple, elegant system that he kind of appreciates what they were doing that long ago and how this system still holds up almost 150 years later. It is a cold and wet day, and right now I am all alone on this cable car getting ready to go up California Street, over the hill, down to Polk Street, meet my daughter, where we're going to have lunch at Swan's Oyster Depot. This is the California line, and it is one of my favorite lines because it takes you up to Nob Hill, where all of the rich folk used to live. Well, actually they still do live up there. Takes you by the Fairmont, the Mark Hopkins, Grace Cathedral, the Union Pacific Club. These are all kind of San Francisco landmarks of the hoity-toity. And I think I mentioned this before. The rich people didn't move up on Nob Hill until the cable cars were in place and they could actually get up and down off of the hill pretty easily. So there are definitely faster ways to get around San Francisco, and there are cheaper ways to get around San Francisco. But I don't know if I do know there is absolutely no way to get around San Francisco and feel like you could have been here almost 150 years ago. Ride a cable car, climb that little sucker halfway to the stars, enjoy yourself, hang off of it, and don't forget that they are a piece of history and were absolutely critical in the development of the city of San Francisco.